they're saying things like it's a cultural divide, right? That they don't see coming back from. Like just that their situation specifically, where they have the more liberal southern portion and then the more conservative northern portion of the state, where they just feel like there's nothing that they can do to ever mend their differences, right? It's just too different, and they want to be gone. But this is kind of like the beginning of the path to a civil war, right? We're dividing
Yeah.
ourselves. Uh,
Welcome to another episode of the Bloomburg Democrat. I'm Sally Taylor. This is my inquisitive younger brother, John Daniels. And we are here today to talk about kind of anything and everything that's happened
yeah,
since we were last together last week.
yeah,
There's been a lot, John.
there has been a
What
lot.
what have you been keeping an eye on in the news?
Well, just the headlines, I guess, and whatever happens to be popping up in my news feed. But I saw that there's a lot of farmers in California that have lost some water for their irrigation. They're not too happy about that, but being pretty tight-lipped about it. I thought that
Yeah,
was,
tight-lipped.
yeah.
Be more specific than that. Why do you think they're being tight-lipped?
Well, they have egg on their face. I guess they're eating crow. They they just kind of they put themselves into an unfortunate situation, and they don't want to say that they're unhappy to be there, I think.
Right, because of their voting
Exactly.
direction.
Their leanings politically have kind of come back to bite them a little bit. Trump had apparently said he was going to let the water in California flow, and that means letting it all out of the reservoirs. So some people were a little bit worried about flooding there for a little while, because the all of the reservoirs have just been left wide open by the Corps of Engineers, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and yeah, so all the irrigation water has been running dry, and it
So
seems like the opposite of water management.
it seems like the complete opposite, doesn't it? That's the
Yeah,
thing that's so incredible to me is the pressure to somehow send water from the north to the south to deal with the LA fires
right. It
was
was kind of for the
based in a
fires.
complete misunderstanding of,
Yeah,
the water situation in the state,
yeah.
because
Where it
just
comes from,
pouring
where it
water
goes.
right onto the ground in the north
Right.
does not end up in the south to
No, it
somehow
definitely does
prevent
not.
the fires.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, it seems like, they just opened some dams to appease the president,
right.
wasted a lot of water that's really important, especially in a dry winter year like this is.
Yeah.
And
And
now those farmers who
farmland
are,
area.
yeah, well, nearly flooded out some farmers as well.
Yeah,
And that farmland now has to be concerned, the farmers of that land have to be concerned that there won't be enough water later in the year when they need
right,
it.
right.
So yeah, kind of it just seems like idiocy, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it seems like they're just doing things without thinking. And so this is something that I read that at least one farmer was kind of not disagreeing with, is the moving fast and breaking things Silicon Valley uh, mindset. Like this person was saying that he was happy that things were moving along and changing, and so he had no regrets. And that was kind of it.
Well, and I find that the faithfulness of the MAGA movement, I have
Yeah,
other words for it, but I'll call it a movement, is very resilient in that, it's very all kinds of things are happening,
Yeah.
but the base is still happy.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to say when you're wrong, for one. And there's been lots of times in history where leaders have allowed other leaders to save face as a means of ending problems, right? And I think we're going to need something kind of like that at some point in the future. We're going to have to be able to let these people save face as a means of finding their way, uh, and turning around, Like otherwise,
Do you
if
mean
you
the
just,
voters or do you mean the politicians?
I mean, voters at this point, but maybe politicians as well, if we don't believe too much in voting for the people that represent us. Um, but I'm thinking of the voters specifically. Like, if we want them to vote better in the future, we need to not kick them while they're down, I think. Uh,
I agree with that.
yeah, we
Yeah.
gotta we gotta make some way for them to come back to the light.
Yeah, I agree. And I've stated that before as well. Although I've certainly railed as well against what it feels like just a lack of education, and but you can't call people stupid and expect them to
Yeah.
see your way.
No,
Do
definitely
you know
not.
what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah. 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 Well,
And so I see that happening a lot
mhm.
on the left, on the more liberal side of things, is that they just, they also feel like the right does, that they're seeing clearly and the other side doesn't,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
And of
Yes.
course, it's gonna there's probably a little bit that's true on both sides, but
Right.
of course I lean left.
Yeah.
And for me, what seems clearly obvious, if you have any background in history, if you have any background, just a general working of our political system,
Mhm.
just the basics, then you can see that we are in a constitutional crisis. Things are
Yeah.
going south really fast.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what it will take, because historically, it's generally gone violent before it
Yeah.
corrects.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the thing that is happening in Indiana as well, right now with the 33 counties that are trying to secede from their state. Like, this is an interesting situation, I think, because they're not trying to secede from the Union, right? They
Right.
still want to be Americans. They just want to make like a new state, or Indiana is proposing that they join them, right? These
Right.
Illinois counties. Maybe I said Indiana before, but it's in Illinois, and so it's the northern counties, I believe, that are feeling like they're not being represented by the rest of
It's
the
the rural counties.
downstate. Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's the conservative versus the more liberal leaning. And
Right.
so there are like different online groups where people are kind of organizing themselves for their movement, and they're saying things like it's a cultural divide, right? That they don't see coming back from. Like just that their situation specifically, where they have the more liberal southern portion and then the more conservative northern portion of the state, where they just feel like there's nothing that they can do to ever mend their differences, right? It's just too different, and they want to be gone. But this is kind of like the beginning of the path to a civil war, right? We're dividing
Yeah.
ourselves, um,
Yes.
ideologically,
Yes.
and there's going to still be people who are trapped on either side, right? It's not
Right.
100% of the people in the North that feel like this.
Right.
It's just some very vocal, perhaps majorities, right?
Right.
So these counties have apparently, supposedly, voted to secede, and so they're trying to figure out what that is going to mean. But if every
Well,
state
and
starts to do this, it's gonna be pretty bad.
it's going to be a mess. Right.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, and of course, we come from Texas, which is a state that has always sort of retained its right to secede.
right. That's what
And so
everyone
there's
says.
always Right. There's always people who talk about it. It's an ongoing conversation in Texas my
Yeah.
entire life anyway. I assume
Yeah.
longer than that.
Yeah, probably.
But they haven't chosen to do it.
Right.
I agree with you though. I have concerns that this might be the beginnings of the end of the United States.
Yeah.
That it may well divide itself up into regions that think more similarly. The
Yeah.
problem is that even within any given state, cities are generally more liberal leaning and
Right.
countryside is generally more conservative leaning.
Right.
And you can't divide a state up by cities and,
Yeah.
you
No,
know,
you can't. And even if
and
you can kind of
farmland.
more or less neatly divide it in half, then it's going to be every state is going to be like, you know, back to back. You're going to have it's going to be striped, I guess, or something, right? The
Right.
United States will have these stripes of just like conservative, liberal, conservative, liberal, conservative, liberal, or it's going to be lots of little dots or something.
Right.
And is it going to be city states? Is that what we're moving
Well,
towards?
I mean, that has existed in the past as well.
Yeah.
The historically,
All right.
city
Well,
states were kind
Athens
of the primary
and
government, right?
Sparta were city
All of
states,
those, yes. Italy in particular was known for its city states for a long,
right?
long time and
Yeah.
didn't become an actual country, united country until really recent history in
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah.
Um, so, all of those things are potentials. I hope it doesn't come to that. I do worry that we might divide up into 3 to 4 separate nations, though. I
Yeah.
think there's a possibility of that. But the migration and the challenge of just the bureaucracy of all of that will
Yeah.
be staggering
Oh
if it
yeah.
occurs.
It's gonna be a big mess.
I mean, who gets the military?
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
who gets all of the things
Well,
that our
maybe.
entire all of the states have poured into these individual systems,
Yeah.
right? How do you divide that up?
Yeah.
Right? By population, by size of by where they already exist. If you've got,
Yeah.
military sitting in your space, is that your military? And what about the
Yeah.
states that have little to none? You
Yeah.
know, there's all
Yeah.
kinds of problems.
And the states with all the nuclear missile silos, suddenly they're going to be nuclear powers, and other places are not.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm troubled by by all of
Yeah.
this talk. I mean, it was always strange to me when I would hear Texans talk about seceding, but it was just kind of what we were exposed to. And
Right.
like I said, it never happened.
It was never a
The
very
thing,
serious talk.
right. But there are certain states that could survive quite well on their own. Texas is
Oh
one of
yes.
them.
Yes. Texas,
California is one
California is
of them.
another. Yeah.
Right. They've got so much population and resources
Yeah.
that they actually pay for most of the rest of the nation in a lot of ways.
Right.
New York State might be another one that you could lump
Yeah.
into that, but
Yeah.
there are regions that definitely pay for the vast majority of the services
Yeah.
in our country.
Yeah. Well,
And
just
these
population and taxes and these things. Yeah.
population, taxes, and sometimes size
Right.
of the land mass in a
Right.
given
For
state.
resources and things. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
is that what Trump had in mind all along, was to just break it all apart so that it's no longer a nation?
I
Or
don't
did
think
he, or
so.
does he think that far?
No, probably he does not think that far, but also I think he's just trying to be remembered as a great person, I think. He's getting old. Like he's not gonna
Yeah,
last forever. And if people keep
right.
shooting at him, then it's his days will be numbered. So, I mean, you can't live forever no matter who you are. And
Right.
certainly if you're also a bullet sponge, that's going to make it extra hard. So he needs
Yeah.
to really start thinking about what he's doing, I think, and consider why he is doing this. If it is for his future image and history or whatever, maybe he ought to work a little bit harder at trying to make sure that it's not a bad memory.
Yeah, I don't think he's wired that way.
Yeah.
For one, if he's truly a malignant narcissist, which we kind of know that he is, they don't think about their own weakness and their own mortality.
Right.
He's talking already and has multiple times now about a third term. And there are people that are trying to back that, despite the fact that
Yeah.
he's as old as he is and he has clear mental decline.
Mhm.
Perhaps he's trying to start, in essence, a monarchy where his children will then inherit,
Uh,
the responsibility of leading the nation. But then he brings in other people like Musk,
yeah.
who is really the person disassembling everything,
Yeah.
truly. And for me, it's Musk's activity that give me the most sort of constitutional crisis like anxiety,
Yeah.
because the things that he's doing blatantly and people seem to be accepting are all illegal.
Yeah.
I mean, truly illegal. You can't
Yeah.
get rid of these departments, that these giant departments that run, massive systems in the United States, without congressional approval, without
Right.
it coming to a vote in Congress.
Yeah.
You can't just dismiss people without cause. Our public employees have special protections for their
Right.
jobs, and they're not political. They span their career service people, and they
Hmm.
span, administrations.
Right.
And so their protections have to be, if you're going to get rid of them, you have to show cause and you have to give notice. And, all of these things are occurring. They're promising money if you just quit, but they don't have
Yeah.
that money allotted from anywhere.
Sure. No, of course
You
not.
can't.
Yeah.
So all of these things that are going on are, to me, evidence that we may have just completely lost our representative democracy.
Mhm.
I mean, I think it's gone because
Well,
our
no,
congressman,
because these are the people who we have elected to represent us so far. Um,
well, but the
I mean,
congressmen are allowing this to happen outside of the law. Do you
yeah,
know what I'm saying?
I do.
Uh, how is
Well,
that representation?
we elected them as well. So we elected a bunch of numbskulls to look the other way while a bunch of other numbskulls destroy everything. So, I mean, they're representing us quite well, I think. This is
Well,
what
and it
what we
seems that
wanted.
those on the right are generally still happy. I touch in every now and then with my right wing friends to say, still liking what's going on? And invariably, they're thrilled. They're thrilled.
Yeah.
And, but maybe it's just because it's too soon.
Yeah, maybe it's too
It
soon. People aren't
hasn't come back to
feeling it
bite
yet.
them yet. Yeah.
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 Yeah, well, I talked with a couple of American friends who came to visit this week, and I asked them how things were going, and they just said, "Well, we're just keeping our heads down and just not trying to worry about it too much." And
Stir
so,
the pot.
yeah, just I guess it's just sticking your head in the sand and hoping and it goes away. And it should probably go away within the next 4 years, right? I guess. Well, we got to
Well,
see what's going to happen.
theoretically, I
Somebody,
mean, generally there is a pendulum swing, typically,
yeah,
right?
someone's going to come in and then just undo all the damage or as much as they can. What we need is we need somebody like just like keeping track of everything that's being destroyed
Done.
so that there's like
Right.
a list of things that can be undestroyed as soon as the
Right.
next person comes in, right? We need a detailed list, like
Yeah.
a
Well, I think
internet wayback machine for the government, basically.
I'm gonna make some comparisons that a lot of people don't like, but
Mhm.
Hitler came into power to the point of really having control over everything, and I think it was something like 57 days. 57 days, and he had control. We're running at that pace.
Yeah.
Absolutely running at that pace.
Mhm.
So those are, those are my, maybe I'm being it's not hyperbole for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, I'm truly feeling like I'm watching history repeat itself.
Yeah.
And I don't.
Well, so some of these things are things that people have tried to do in the past, right? Was it US aid that or was it Madeleine Albright had tried to dismantle it at one point?
Maybe I would have to look that up. I don't know.
It was in an article that I read,
But
but
it's been a
forgot.
department for something like 60 years.
Yeah,
And, you know, it's a well established in that we've got people all over the world assisting, with
right.
things like hunger, and I mean it does a lot of different things.
Yes,
But it's
yes,
it's our goodwill department, and
yes,
our if we're going to be a leader in the world,
right,
helping those who need help
right.
is part of leadership.
Yeah. Yes. So
And
one of the former Republican leaders of USAID has said that this is this is a very good thing for the United States, right?
right,
Um, People are elected into foreign governments for the reason that they are employed by USAID, right? It gives them kind of an end to our government, and that gives us an end to their government, and we're all friendly and shaking hands and trying to go in the same direction. So, yes, it's definitely a good thing to have, right? It's good to be friends with the people of the world. And I believe that the Trump administration has pointed to Canada and Mexico have done the same thing with their aid departments. They kind of
right,
wrapped them into the Department of State, and so now they don't really do anything, right?
right,
And but that's what Trump and friends are pointing to is like, hey, look, they did it, right? It'll be fine. And but yeah, okay, I mean, I guess they're still a country. They're still there, but
right,
they don't have the influence that they probably had in the past.
right. Yeah.
And I think we like to have that influence.
Well, we do, because
Yeah,
where we pull out of, at least this is the line that I'm hearing on the left.
yeah,
When we pull out, China and Russia move in to
yeah,
do the same thing,
right.
which I don't have any problem with them doing that. But if
No, of
you're
course not.
if you're saying that China is evil and is taking over the world and Russia is, your
Yeah,
enemy, then why are
yeah,
you handing over all
yeah.
of these,
All of your friends.
yeah, all of your friends to these organizations, yes, these governments?
Yeah,
So it just seems like an enigma to me that
yeah.
makes no sense.
Well, it's just another thing that's not been thought out. And maybe if we
Right,
had a better education department, then maybe people would see this, right?
right.
Um,
Well, and
yeah,
I've heard
trying to close
also,
the education department is also just a terrible thing. Like
I've
you
also
don't want a
heard
standard of education anymore?
they don't like the government to tell them what their standard of education should
Right.
be. But
Yeah.
it's unfortunately the states with the lowest educational scores that support it,
Yeah.
right? It's our failing states when it comes to
Well,
education that
so
are
maybe the
supporting getting rid
education
of the
department
education department.
has failed these states.
It's yeah,
So
sure, maybe,
so maybe it's
except
understandable
for
from that
that
perspective.
education has always been considered to be the purview of the states and the
Yeah.
local and the local regions.
Right.
So where we're
Right.
from, each town had its own school district.
Right.
Other states run it a little different, where maybe a certain area will have a school district, or there will be they'll conglomerate just a little bit more, where there's more schools
Mhm.
within school districts for a broader area. There's lots of
Right.
different ways states work that out. Every state has its own way of working,
This
and
is
we
true.
claim that education remains with the state. And what the education department does is it fills the gaps,
Right.
right?
Right.
And it helps send extra money. There will be schools that will lose 30% of their funding
Yeah.
when the Department of Education goes away.
Well,
30%.
the states are going to have to pick that up.
They're
They're
going to
going to
have
have
to.
to. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then what is the state going to stop paying for that it's currently paying for? Right? It's going to have to cut back somewhere. Or maybe they'll just do what the United States has been doing for a little while now and just start doing more illegal taxation. So more speed traps with cameras, right? More more taxes that are on just the average person through certainly non-voted means, right? Who votes
Well,
for
property
speed
taxes will
cameras?
go up.
Talk, yes,
Property
property
taxes.
taxes will go up a lot.
Yes.
Yes,
We end up having increased property taxes on a regular basis, just based not on people voting to raise your property taxes, but
right.
based on, the fact that they decide that your property value has increased, and
Yes,
therefore they will charge
yes.
you more in taxes.
You can't probably sell it for as much as they're saying that it's worth, but you
Depends, but
gotta
yeah,
pay
a
the
lot of times
taxes
that's
on
true.
that.
Right. But
Yeah,
you pay the taxes anyway.
yeah,
And that is the way that they raise funds for school frequently, because generally it's property taxes that pay for schools.
right.
So people who, there have been great ideas for these things over the years that we've just never done because the system is large. But a flat tax could solve all those problems. And then
Yeah,
it's not just property owners paying for schools, it's everybody. It's
right.
not just, the middle class paying into the bulk of society. It's
Mm,
everybody,
yeah,
So I'm with libertarians on some of those ideas,
yeah,
on making it more equitable, but just by taxes being a flat rate for
yeah,
everybody.
yeah,
Stepping taxes or having only certain portions of society pay taxes for certain things
yeah.
has always created unhappiness.
Well, that's true. However, if you have a very low income, 30% of your income is a lot of necessities that you cannot pay for,
Absolutely.
right? But when you have a very large income, 30% is a lot of stuff you don't need that you just won't be able to buy this time.
Right. Well, generally they've considered it for sales tax, not like an income tax,
Right,
just a flat sales tax. So the more you buy, the
right.
more you pay.
Yeah. Well, that
Um,
would be all right, I would think.
because the wealthy tend to buy a lot of expensive things.
Right, right.
Right.
Yeah,
So they
that's a
would
good way
end
to
up
do
paying
it.
more in taxes.
Yeah,
Uh, and the poor buy very little, so their tax, burden is less.
yeah,
Um, yeah. So, I mean, and you could still have, if you have income below a certain level, that you don't pay tax, that's a
right,
possibility. And maybe there's an easing in for the rate at the lowest end.
right.
That, you know what I mean? Because if you make, we'll just keep the numbers simple. If you don't pay taxes on $100, but you pay 30% of taxes on $101, that's a problem.
Yeah, yeah,
So you still have to kind of take care of the people with the least,
right, right,
by easing them back into the system.
right.
I don't think that's going to happen. That's pie in the sky, though, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah.
We were talking about US aid, though, and another thing that I've heard recently, and again, I have no idea if this is conspiracy theory or based in any fact or not, but I'll
Mhm.
share it as just something to consider, maybe researching further,
Okay.
is that one of the reasons that US aid was first on the chopping block was because it was partly responsible for helping end apartheid.
Oh, so
And of course, yes,
Musk. Yeah.
Musk.
Well, is he even an American citizen? I'm not sure.
He is a naturalized
Oh,
citizen, as far as I'm aware. So, like he gets to vote and all that sort of thing. But for a group of people who are screaming against people coming into the country from other places, it's
yes.
crazy to me that we have so many immigrants that are helping to push this narrative.
Yes. Well, I don't know how far back Marco Rubio's family has been
I think a
citizens, but
generation. I think a single
yeah,
generation. I think
yeah,
he's a first
right.
generation American.
He's pretty close to this as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And wow, he's
Yeah.
trying to send all our prisoners off to El Salvador.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So let's bring up another topic from this week, since we're just kibitzing this week, John.
Okay.
There's just so much that's happening all at once.
Yeah.
So Trump's announcement that we're going to own Gaza. We're
Oh,
going to clear it out. All the Palestinians are going to get moved out to where?
yeah.
Who knows? But
Yeah.
we're
Well,
going to
neighboring
scrape it
countries.
clean and build, casinos and hotels, and it's going to be the
Yeah.
Mediterranean Riviera.
All right.
What the hell?
Well,
What?
well, the heavily Arab, maybe Muslim immigrants sections of the North Midwest, they're suddenly starting to think, oh no, what have we done? Because they sided with Trump.
Yeah. Yeah. Largely. And
Yeah,
I that's the patriarchy. That's the machismo. I
yeah,
find a lot of these very conservative leaning groups,
mm,
it is they like that tell me what to do authoritarian aspect,
yeah.
but they think they're voting for a strong man that's going to give them what they want, not just a
Right,
strong man who's
right.
going to run roughshod over everybody
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
without thinking
It seemed
twice.
like everybody thought they were voting for Santa Claus. Like
Right.
they thought he's gonna come and he's just gonna give me all these presents and it's gonna be wonderful.
Yeah. So what this is why I also think World War III might be coming. We
Yeah.
have now threatened Panama,
Mm,
Greenland, Canada, a little bit Mexico, um, Gaza.
yeah.
this
Well,
this is warmongering,
we're taking Venezuela president's airplanes and stuff.
right?
Like,
These feel like acts of war. They feel criminal in my
yeah,
mind.
yeah,
But here we are, just with so many people still saying he's our guy. He's our guy.
yeah. Well, it just hasn't hit home yet. It's
It hasn't hit
it's
him
going
yet.
to. I mean, if it does come to war, there's probably gonna be a draft and everybody's gonna feel it.
I still have a son-in-law who's in the military. I have a grandson who's becoming a teenager and will within a few years be of that age.
Yeah,
I do not want them in unnecessary aggression, acts of aggression wars,
yeah, yeah.
because their lives are valuable to me.
Right. Well, see, this is now what Russia's dealing with as well, right? So
Yeah.
they have been just throwing their future generations at a big meat grinder in Ukraine, and they've been doing the same thing to Ukraine as well. And that's what war does. I mean, it basically just starts to wipe out your future generations. And I guess you burn your your card. The what is it? The
Oh, for
In the
uh
70s, everybody was 60s and 70s, people were burning their
right.
the draft card, right?
They're draft cards. They're
Yeah.
draft cards. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
uh
Moved to
I
Canada, moved to Mexico.
I don't think Canada or Mexico wants a
They don't want you.
pile of white Americans who are trying to escape their own country. I mean,
Oh,
that
yeah.
is the
All
problem,
right.
isn't it?
That's
Is it
that is the problem. Nobody wants people who are trying to escape from their own countries. Like,
right,
yeah.
right.
But I
And
think people should be able to escape their own countries. Like we are born into the place where we're born, not because of our own choosing. It's just the
right,
luck of the draw, right? So,
right.
in my opinion, if you don't like where you are, you should be able to leave. And I think it would be nice if we had other options than just remaining a citizen to the country where you were born while not wanting to be from there anymore, right? You can't just get rid of your passport and not have another passport because then you can't go anywhere, right? You can't become a
Right.
resident. You can't become maybe there's paths to citizenship if you are stateless, but right? So it's really hard to be stateless in the world today.
It
Um,
is. Well, there's a
I
very limited number of places you can go,
yeah,
for one.
yeah.
Uh,
I think it would be nice if it were easier for people to be
yeah.
stateless.
Well, and that gets me to another point that I've been thinking about a lot lately. Like
Hmm.
the current thinking of this administration is to, well, honestly, I think the true thinking is just divide the people so that they're easier to manage.
Yeah.
But they're doing that by making brown people especially the
Oh
enemy.
yes. Oh yes.
And of course, if they can show that they crossed the line without, permission,
Hmm.
documentation, then
Right.
they're criminal.
Right.
And so, there's that aspect.
I've seen a lot of
Oh,
like reframing these crackdowns by the immigration customs enforcement officers. Like the at first it was just kind of we're going to get them all out, or it's going to be only the no, no, no. I think at first I heard a lot more of like we're just going to get send back all of the illegal immigrants, right? But then lately it's been a lot more of like we're just trying to get the really bad criminals. Like that's what they're focusing the rhetoric on now.
the rhetoric,
Is
yes, but
yes,
not
the
their
rhetoric
actual
is no,
activities.
no, no. They went for just the easy low-hanging fruit, like the non-violent people, straight from the
Right,
bat, right off the bat. And that's kind of what they said they were going to do at first, but I think they're a little bit now starting to realize that the image that they're showing is not in their best interest, and so they're trying to reframe it as we're only going after the criminals, the violent criminals, and these
right.
things. But it's still not true.
But it's not the actuality. But here
Right.
was the point that I was going to make that I lost all of a sudden. It
Mhm.
was that there are so many better ways to deal with undocumented workers. And I'm
Yeah.
calling them workers because they're here to
Yeah.
work. And that's
Right.
where they're going to find them is at their places of work, right? They're rounding them
Yes.
up from
And
the
there's
factories
schools
and the farms and the
and
schools
the
and all of
churches.
that. Right.
Yes.
Well, at least they've given permission to. I don't know if that's actually happened yet, but there's
Yeah.
permission. So back in the 80s, there was a debate between Ronald Reagan and Bush Sr. when they were both vying for the presidential nomination.
Right.
And in the debate, they were basically discussing, more so than even debating, because they kind of agreed that there were humane ways to allow these workers to
Hmm.
gain, citizenship or to be here in a legal manner, even without citizenship, to be here and allow them to work and treat
Right.
them humanely and educate their children and,
Hmm.
be commonly decent
Make our
leaders.
country stronger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now we've just turned them into the enemy
Mhm.
and get them all out.
Well, they're the
Despite the
scapegoat.
fact, yes, well, despite the fact that is food lying fallow in fields now because nobody's showing up to work to pick the
Yeah.
fruits and vegetables and other things that a lot of these people, they migrantly move across the country to do this job. I mean,
Right.
this is one of many jobs. Of course, they do a lot of other things, but they pay taxes.
Yeah.
They pay into the system that they take very little from in return
Yeah.
other than a wage.
Yeah.
And so why did we go from conservative leaders saying there's compassionate, humane ways to make this better to the round them up and throw them into Guantanamo where they'll receive no due process,
Mm.
right? And we're essentially just kind of placing them in concentration camps.
Yeah.
How did we do that in such a
That's a good
short period of
question.
time?
Money in politics is probably part of it, but I guess there was money in politics at that point, but not as much, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, and we were just far more unified as a nation. We, we would vote, the
Mhm.
public would choose whoever the president was, and yes, there would be some disagreement on what was being done, but we still functioned as a unit.
Yeah.
We're no longer functioning as a unit, as a nation anymore. The the division between, political ideology has become so extreme
Well,
that I
I think
really do think we're about to dissolve as a nation.
that's identity politics. I think. Basically, that has been playing on people's fears and has been dividing people from each other for a very long time. Like that's what identity politics does, right?
Right.
So,
Well,
and
it's
then
become extreme.
yes, it definitely has. Maybe I think I don't think it's a sense of moral decay, but I think the weakening of religious control over the individual lives of people has probably had something to do with it. Not that it's a bad thing, because I personally find myself to be, I think, a better person, um, just as an atheist myself, um, because I don't focus so much on dying and getting my gifts in heaven. Like I want to enjoy my life now because I don't really believe in anything after, right? And so now is when I need to be nice to other people. Now is when I need to enjoy nature. Now's when I need to see the beauty that we have here on Earth. So I think that not running away, but separating myself from religion has kind of made me a better person. And maybe that is true for some, and maybe not true for others. But I think that there's a sense of urgency and kind of a resistance to go quietly into the night on the side of religious institutions. And we kind of saw this with the Catholic Church back in the past when it was the Holy Roman Catholic Church, right? And the Inquisition and these things. Like they were really holding on to power over individual people's lives as strongly as they could. And when that power started to slip, things started to go really weird, right? They started to become much more strict and were just like murdering people through the Inquisition constantly. And so it's kind of like that, I think. We have these religious institutions that are losing influence in people's lives, and they're feeling it, right? They're feeling that loss of control and that loss of respect and power. And so they're trying to cling to it. And I think it's causing some of the problems that we're experiencing now.
The Inquisition was a really dark period in time, though, John.
Yes.
Have we not have we not been more enlightened since that point that we're
Oh, we definitely have, but
not
that doesn't mean we
going
can't go
to
back.
I was going to say that we don't slide back into the state of the Inquisition because you
Well,
know, it feels a
so
little bit like that, doesn't it?
yeah.
If you've got
Well, any one of
people
us
ratting
only
out their
lives,
neighbors.
yeah, but any one of us only lives 100 years, and we don't remember all the stuff that came before us, and we're not going to be sticking around to tell people, don't forget it happened to my life, like we're not going to be here to tell people that. And so
Yeah.
our collective memory is quite short, and when we don't have nice history books and things like that telling us the truth, then these things get lost very quickly. Like,
Well, it's not that the books don't exist, John. It's that there's
well, I
nobody
understand that.
reading them
Yes, or that they're being burned or
or they're
made
being burned.
illegal or kicked out of
Right.
schools, or I mean there's all kinds of things. Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, I'd have to look up the statistics again, but the the statistics around the percentage of people who read even a single book in a given year is
Mhm.
shockingly low.
Right.
Maybe I'll look that up and put it in the on the
Yeah.
video. But
Well, I definitely
again,
read less than I
education.
used to.
Yeah. Well, do you read less
No,
than
I
you used to?
don't.
Or you just
I
read
can't say that I read less.
shorter
Yes, I
snippets?
don't. I don't read novels as much as I used to. But
Yeah, I read almost no novels anymore, but I read a
yeah,
lot of nonfiction.
yes, I do
And
too.
so
Yeah, fiction's
that's
better.
the thinking. Fiction is more entertainment.
Yes, for
We
sure.
tend to prefer that in shorter sessions. 2-hour movie starts to feel long for most people these days,
Right,
right?
right.
And
Yeah,
if you get a 3-hour movie, it's a fan base that's watching the full 3 hours,
that's right.
right?
That's right.
Well, it's been an interesting week. A lot of big changes, a
Yeah.
lot of things that are concerning. Certainly, we're not going to sort them out in this little visit, but
Mm.
hopefully people will remain aware and not put their head in the sand. I actually had somebody tell me that it was a good idea to put my head in the sand the other day.
Oh yeah.
And I
Well, I can
just
understand.
resisted that.
I can understand the compulsion to want to. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not wired that way. I'm really
Yeah.
not. I can't just look away and think
Yeah.
that it, I can only be concerned about my own welfare.
Yeah.
I know there's people that need to do that, and that's fine. But we can't
Yeah.
have the majority of people that do that,
Yeah. No.
because otherwise
And
we will allow these atrocities to happen without voicing dissent.
yeah. Yeah. I agree. Um, I think the place to start is locally. Try to take care of the people around you, and then I think you'll find you'll just be the person that you need to be when it comes to the larger stage. Find the homeless people who need help, the people who don't have coats that need coats, and you know, do a coat drive. Go buy some used coats at a garage sale or something and hand them out if you can. Like just anything that you can do that would be nice and help other people have a better life. Just try to do it. And I think you'll find that you feel better about yourself and you feel better about others. And you got to start small and you got to start local and you got to do things that you can do, right? Do things that will affect you and just try to make the world a better place. That's all we can do.
And that's the way to sway people to your way of thinking, is
Mhm.
through your own personal kindness. Because I find that, again, like we started with, telling people that they're stupid, it's
Yeah,
not
it's not gonna
helpful.
work.
Telling them that
You
they're
get frustrated. I can understand wanting to, but it
right.
doesn't help. It really
It
doesn't.
doesn't make a difference as far as helping anybody to see things in a different light. And
Yeah.
I find, and it's kind of one of the reasons why I framed this podcast in the way I did. I find that if you ask people questions
Yeah.
about why they think the way they do, why they, react the way they do, sometimes they get themselves to the same place as you are
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
because they have to consider, you know, am am
Right.
I am I the type of person that wants to put other people in concentration camps? Am I the kind
Yeah.
of person who wants to put any gender, race, whatever, into a box
Mm.
that says that they're less human
Yeah.
than I am?
Yeah.
If you ask questions, leading questions around some of these topics, you'll
Yeah.
find most people want to be good people. They want
Yeah.
to do what's right. They want to help their neighbors. They want to everybody to be successful,
Yeah. And I think
and not
the
just themselves.
golden rule is a wonderful way to just to judge anything. Would you want someone to treat you badly because of the way you are? Of course
Right.
not. So don't do that to other people either, right?
Yeah.
Like people are going to be who they are and you're not going to change them. So just accept them and don't try to be a jerk, right? That's all.
Yes.
You don't want people to being a jerk to you, so don't be a jerk to others and just everybody try to get along and we always have friction, like one of the interesting things I find to read on the internet is like these websites where they distill the Reddit discussions like am I an asshole or right
Right. I've seen those.
or
Yes.
whatever. Yes. I really like reading these. And we're always going to have this friction with our neighbors, right? Somebody's going to be loud in the evening or park in front of your driveway or whatever. But if you can deal with this without being a jerk, and or if you can, if you find yourself on the opposite side of this situation, if you can respond to someone's frustration with your actions without becoming a bigger jerk, right? So many problems in life will just start to disappear, right? All the problems that you find on a daily basis that are driving you crazy, these things can all start to go away if you just kind of say, okay, I'm not gonna let it bother me too much. It'll be okay. This person may be having a bad day. I'm clearly having a bad day, right? You just kind of
Right.
water off a duck's back. Just let it go.
Right.
Just let it go.
Well, and there's a book out right now, and I'm trying to think of the lady's name that wrote it. Again, I'm sure I can find it and put it up here, but it's a book called
Yeah.
Let Them.
Mm.
Basically, let people be and do
Yeah.
what they're going to be and do, and
Yeah.
don't let it destroy you in the process.
That's right. That's right.
Um,
That's
yeah,
right. Because it's really probably none of your business anyway. And if they're
right.
making it your business, well, then again, try to work it out as calmly as possible. That's the best way to do it.
As
Oof.
yeah. Yeah, and see, we say these really wonderful, straightforward statements of being, and then I think, well, but if they're
That one
harming
guy.
somebody, I'm
Well, okay,
gonna,
okay.
but if they're harming somebody, you
Yes.
know, I, I'm not just going to let them do that.
Right. Right.
If I
And
can
that's fine.
find, if either my voice or my action can protect someone else
Right.
from harm,
Right.
then I feel a responsibility, whether it's
Yes,
mine or not.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Um, yeah, but I think a lot of the little things that we allow to bother us, we shouldn't be bothered by, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. All right, brother. Well, that was a lot of different topics on a lot of different
Yeah.
things,
And
but
I keep thinking
there's
about
just
how
so much going on.
I wanna do more with like sources, but really you just Google whatever we're talking about and you find the same stuff.
Right.
Because
Right.
it's
Well,
just
the
right
big
there on the
thing
front page. That's what I'm reading. I'm not going
the big thing is to
deep
question
research.
what's going on.
Exactly.
Question it.
And feel
I'm
free,
sorry, you,
anybody who wants to disagree with us in the comments section, please do so. That's
yeah.
fine. You're welcome to disagree.
We tend
But,
to respond.
yeah. But if you want our sources, like if a quick Google will find you our sources because I'm not doing deep research here. I just think about the
Right.
stuff that I read and I don't even remember all of it, but I remember the parts that I thought were interesting or that felt important to me. So,
Right.
like, we do have sources.
Yes, it's easy to get to. And I don't
Yeah.
mind popping a few things onto the screen in the edit as well. But thank you again, John,
Yeah,
for
no problem.
another fun discussion.
My pleasure.
Hopefully we'll have an impact on just helping people think about what they're doing.
Oh, I hope so. Let's all just think about it.
Yeah. All right. Till next time.
All right.
If you enjoyed this content, please hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications.